All right, let's shed some light on one of the most brilliant inventions, well, ever, the light bulb. I mean, it literally lit up our world, right? But the story of who actually invented it, well, that's where things start to get a little more interesting.
So, I've got a question for you. Who really invented the light bulb? I bet a name just popped into your head, didn't it? Go ahead, hold on to that name, because we're about to put that piece of common knowledge to the test.
Okay, to really get this, we have to travel back in time. Picture a world without electric light. Kinda hard to imagine, isn't it? After the sun went down, your main option for light was candles. And yeah, they seem all romantic and cozy to us today, but trust me, back then they were a total headache.
I mean, just think about it. Candles were incredibly messy. You've got wax dripping everywhere, soot staining your walls, and way more importantly, they were dangerous. We're talking open flames in every single room. That's a massive fire hazard. On top of all that, they just weren't very bright. It was a dim, flickering world, and people were desperate for a better way. Something clean, something safe, and something that was actually bright.
And this is where our hero steps onto the stage. The one name that is basically synonymous with the light bulb. You know who I'm talking about, Thomas Edison. Now, Edison's journey to create a working light bulb is the stuff of legend. See, his goal wasn't just to make a light. No, he was on a mission. He wanted to create a light that was safe, that was reliable, and that was affordable enough to put in every single home.
And this guy was an absolute powerhouse of invention. I mean, we're talking about a man with over 1,000 inventions to his name. Things we still talk about today, like the movie camera and the electric battery. He wasn't some one-hit wonder, he was a machine, a relentless force of creativity.
What's really interesting, though, is that he wasn't a great student. He found school to be just dull. But what he did have was this incredible, unstoppable curiosity. His mom encouraged it, and he spent his childhood doing science experiments, completely driven by this need to figure out how everything worked.
So what's the actual science here? It's a principle called incandescence, and the basic idea is surprisingly simple. You just run electricity through a super thin piece of material called a filament. When that filament gets hot enough, it glows. Boom, you have light. The concept was easy. The hard part was finding a way to make it last.
And that leads us right to Edison's biggest hurdle, the filament. Everything hinged on finding the absolute perfect material. It had to glow super bright, but it also had to last for hours and hours without just fizzling out.
So, how'd he solve it? Well, he and his team went on an epic search, testing, get this, 4,700 different materials. This was not some eureka moment. It was a grind, a marathon of trial and error fueled by pure, stubborn persistence. Seriously, they tested everything you can imagine. Copper, platinum, they even tried using hair from a guy's beard. I'm not kidding. It just shows you how far they were willing to go. No idea was too crazy in that lab.
So, after testing literally thousands and thousands of things, what was the magic material? Well, funny enough, he ended up going back to one of his very first ideas. The winner, the one that could finally hold that glow, was a simple carbon filament.
And that was the moment, the breakthrough. On October 22nd, 1879, their carbon filament bulb stayed lit for 13.5 hours straight. This was it. This was the light that was finally practical, affordable, and could last long enough to actually light up a person's home.
So it seems like that's the end of the story, right? Problem solved, Edison wins. But it's not the whole story. There's another chapter, a hidden part, that might just change the way you think about this whole thing. Which brings us back to that very first question I asked you. We know Edison's achievement was incredible, game-changing. But was he actually the first person to invent the light bulb?
And here's the plot twist. The answer is no, he wasn't. In fact, there were an incredible 23 different kinds of light bulbs developed by other people before Edison even had his famous success in 1879.
Let's just take a quick look at the timeline. This story starts way back in 1809 with Sir Humphrey Davy and his electric arc lamp. Then you have Warren de la Rue in 1820 with the first incandescent light. And crucially, just before Edison, a British inventor named Sir Joseph Swan created a working, functional light bulb.
And Swan's bulb was a big deal. It was actually used to light up the Savoy Theatre in London, which became the very first public building in the entire world to be lit completely by electricity. That's a huge milestone, and it happened before Edison's bulb took over.
So what's the deal then? Here's the key distinction.
Other people invented the first electric lights, but Edison, he invented the first practical one. His wasn't the first bulb ever created, but it was the first one that was affordable, reliable, and could burn long enough to actually be useful for ordinary people. He cracked the code that made it a world-changing technology.
And it's that crucial innovation, that perfection of the idea, that kicked off the legacy we're all a part of today. From that one little, long-lasting bulb, a whole new, brighter world was born.
But of course, the story didn't end in 1879. Innovation never stops, right? Edison's carbon bulb led to the modern incandescent bulbs many of us grew up with. Then came the swirly CFLs, and now we have the incredibly efficient LEDs that are pretty much everywhere.
And I think that's the real lesson in all of this. Invention is so rarely that eureka moment we see in movies, that lone genius having a sudden flash of brilliance. It's almost always more like a relay race. Each person takes the baton, runs with it as far as they can, and then passes it on. It's a long, continuous process of improvement.
So that kind of leaves us with a cool question to think about, doesn't it? The light bulb took decades and dozens of smart people to finally get right. So what about the things we use every single day, our phones, our cars, the internet? We're still in the middle of perfecting them right now. What do you think they're going to look like 50 years from now?